Travis. I'm going to just let people file in for a minute. Give it about two minutes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Sure.
Okay, great.
We're going to let WaitBot just hang out here with us for a couple minutes while I do some pre-show stuff, and then we'll get at it. I'll let you know. I'll pull you up on screen in just give me maybe one more minute.
Sure, no problem.
Feel free to share if you want to. I think I shared it with my followers, and then I'll broadcast it out to the world too. We got to get rid of that. That's got to change. That has got to change. It is rough. All right. Not a fan of WaitBot, but not many people are. I am going to introduce the show. I'm going to introduce our guests. We have to do everything on the fly while we're live. So I've been doing some pre-show stuff to make sure that we can get the word out. It takes a little bit of time for people to populate the room, but feel free to share it, and people will start piling in. So my name is Deanna. You're in the Laughter After Trauma show, and we're going to go ahead and just get this thing rolling, and people will join as they join. I'm a speaker, educator, entertainer, and coach that brings light and lightness to the heavy topic of trauma. And for most of us, we've experienced some sort of trauma in our lives. You kind of don't get through life unscathed. I am a thriver and survivor after intimate partner violence, and that journey is what led me to find the beauty and the laughter after. And so I think that, what I like to bring here is to show that we are all capable of healing. We are self-healers. We're magic. We have it inside us, and we can do whatever it is that we set out to do. We have that power to do it. And the Laughter After Trauma show here just showcases everyday people who have triumphed in the face of trauma. And we provide hope and awareness, connection, and community, sharing our laughter after. So just letting people know that we're not alone. I am going to bring you on camera, Travis. Let's see if I can get this going. You should be able to accept that and bring yourself up onto video. There you are. Hey.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. I am recovering from COVID, so I'm a little scratchy today. I've had a week of this, so I finally tested negative yesterday, and so I'm kind of on the mend, but it's been a little bit. So how are you? This is the first time I'm really actually getting to talk to you face to face, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm doing well. My friend had a grand opening of this is so interesting. So Privy Oasis is a mental health facility catered to minorities, and she just had a grand opening today, and that's literally where I'm at right now. So this is like,
wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out with this. We should have met last week at our workshop on Make Your Message Matter, that we were supposed to do with Mike Zeller. And I know everybody, including myself, people wound up with COVID, people wound up with moms in hospitals. And I know things all kind of got a little rearranged, but I know we'll get to it. So I'm excited about that. You know, that's going to come around, and I'm
Yeah.
real excited to be a part of that. So let me introduce you. I have a little bit of a bio here, so I'm going to introduce you, but then I want to ask you a couple of questions to get us started, and then we're just going to get into your story, because really the way I like to do this here is just very just real and raw. So I think you'll love that because I feel like that's how you are. Just kind of just tell the story, let people know the things that you've done, the things you've been through, but the things that you've done to overcome. So, um, Travis here is the CEO of Interlight Media, and it's an impact driven social media marketing agency. And what he's doing is changing the world by helping some of the biggest online influencers, entrepreneurs, and brands tell their powerful and life affirming messages to hundreds of millions of people. And the reason he can do that is he's got this win regardless mindset that he helps others to believe in as well. That no matter what your circumstances are, no matter your background, no matter your challenges, we all are capable of overcoming. And that is something that is important to me here on this show about laughter after trauma, because it highlights how you can go through those experiences and choose, because of your mindset, to come out on the other side the way you choose to. It's a mindset, right? So I love that. So I'm excited and ready for your story. But a couple of things before we get started, because I kind of like
Sure.
to do this to break the ice. So just a little bit of background. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your family, and then I'm going to do a little this or that. Just so we can learn a little bit about you.
Yeah. So my name is Travis. I go by Travis Believes online. And I'm married. I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I now reside in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And I come from a very troubled background. But I've been able to create a life for myself because of my troubled background.
Hmm.
To where I get to inspire a lot of people. So, I'm extraordinarily happy to be able to share my story.
Yeah, and I think everybody's going to be excited. Now, a lot of times we get people on the replay, but like I said, as people start realizing that we're on, people will kind of pile into the show.
Yep,
Fireside's kind of a fairly new platform. We are
it
simulcasting out
is.
to my YouTube, and afterwards I'll put all the show notes out there where people can find you and everything else. Um, and if it's okay with you, I'm turning this into an actual regular podcast. And if you're okay with me sharing it in podcast format, then down the road, once I get everything set up, I'm going to send it out like that as well. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
okay, perfect. All right. So we got you. We got where are you from? You have a family? Do you have any kids?
Yeah, I have a stepson, a 17-year-old step.
This is going to be fun. So you have a 3-year-old, you said?
A 17-year-old stepson.
17. You don't look like you could have a. I apologize. I have not been coughing like this. So you don't look like you're old enough. Are you old enough? I know he's a stepson, but
Yeah, I'm in my 30s. I'm in my mid 30s.
all right. So barely. Okay. I guess it's possible. Um, all right. So the this or that, the this or that. I just like to do two questions. So if I had to ask you this or that, Are you a book? I cannot believe I'm having this trouble right now. Okay. We'll edit this out later. Are you a book person, like in book format, or are you an audible audiobook?
Audiobook for sure.
You one of those who likes to listen on the run, right?
Yeah. So for me, and this is just, I don't know. I would just say this is the way I learn. For me, there are like multiple ways people learn, right? And I think it's important for people to master the way they best learn. I think it's important to kind of understand and learn in multiple different ways, but I also think it's most important to understand the way you best learn. For me, I recognize in myself the way I like to learn, right? I'm the type of person to where if I can hear stuff, I can remember it because I can immediately like apply it. When I read stuff, I gravitate towards that too as well. But if I'm able to like listen to it, it can be a little bit more versatile and accessible for me.
I like that. I I'm a person who winds up listening to the book but also needing to read it so I can highlight and underline and write notes depending on what it is. I mean, if it's just a novel or something, fine, I'll just read it. But if it's self-help or something that I'm learning, I like to do both. So that's cool. All right, the second one, let's do this one. This is a fun one. Toilet paper. Do you put your roll on over or under?
I'm a man. I don't think any man cares.
But I bet you have a way of doing it that you don't realize you do it every time. Or are you one of those people who just don't put it on? You just put it on top the empty roll.
No, I'll put it on. If I had to guess, I guess I would say um, under.
Under. So, do you have cats in the house?
Mm-mm.
Okay. A lot of people do that so they can't unroll the toilet paper. Anyway. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get into your story.
Well,
Just
to be fair, that's the reason why I did pick it because if you have it, it's easier to, you know what I'm saying. And so if you have it under, it's harder for That's the reason why I picked that.
It's funny. I love it. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your story. I want to get to know you. Start like just let us know. Just start wherever you want. I'm sure you have stuff from a few things that I read. I don't like to get to know my guests too much, but if just from the few things I read, I know you've had some trouble growing up, childhood trouble, some traumas in your younger life that kind of moved you through some bad places, but then maybe led you to where you are. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So I grew up, in St. Louis, Missouri. So I was born in the '80s,
Hmm.
and you know, a lot of people don't know this, but St. Louis has always been, and this is obviously nothing to brag. This is a very bad thing, but it's always been like top five most dangerous cities in America, always, every year.
Huh.
And I come from the most dangerous areas of St. Louis, Missouri.
Mm,
So growing up, I didn't have a father. My mom was on drugs. We moved about, obviously, throughout that arena. I probably went to at least 10 different elementary schools growing up,
mm,
multiple different middle schools, multiple different high schools. And so just never had a stable place to stay. I ended up going into foster care, and in children's homes. And then eventually landed in jail when I got old enough early on.
mm.
Um, yeah, did you, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So I had a question about that because you were with your mom, but you wound up in foster care. So did that is that just was something? Did your mom wind up in jail first? How did you wind up in foster care?
Yeah,
If it's
so
okay for me to ask, you don't. You can always say I don't want to answer
yeah,
something, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
so my let's just put it like this. My mom didn't go to jail, but she wasn't there for us.
Hmm.
So when a family member found out, they called the protective, services,
Uh huh.
and we got put into the system.
Okay, let me ask you. And again, anything I ask, you can not answer. Just it's okay. But I have a question about this because now that you can look back on it, and I might be moving forward a little bit, but was that worse? Was being put into that system? Did you find that you were better cared for, better off, the same? You maybe would have probably wound up in the same places as you already had, or yeah, tell me about how you see it in the rear view.
Yeah, so fundamentally, um, the reasons I don't like, because that's not the first time I heard that question, but the reason I don't find that question to be adequate is because the way I judge it is, in order for a child to receive proper care, you have to fundamentally have five things, right? There
Mhm.
needs to be um, shelter, right? There needs to be food, right? There needs to be clothing. There needs to be environment. And then ultimately, there needs to be a love factor in there. And I think if you're not providing, all five of those, and it's an inadequate situation regardless. That's
Right.
my personal opinion. I don't.
I
I think
agree
when
with
it comes
that.
to kids, I think when it comes to kids, it's either like you're either meeting the standard or you're not.
Mhm.
So with my mother, the situation obviously was worse, but in the state facility, it obviously wasn't adequate.
Right. And I do think that safety and protection is such a fundamental thing that children need, especially. And when you don't feel secure, you wind up in maybe like a complex trauma type of situation where you are constantly learning how to protect yourself, and it usually doesn't serve you well as you get older, but you have those same triggers and those same ways of handling situations sometimes. So,
Yep.
but so just tell us, go ahead and move through that with me. So you found yourself in those places, you found yourself in the system, and then eventually you found yourself, you said, in jail. So,
Hmm.
and you served 3 years in jail.
3 years. Yeah.
So when you did you so I interviewed somebody the other day who served 7 years in jail, and in that time he put himself through school and came out with a degree and is now coaching and mentoring, and he's like done a complete 180 degrees. And obviously you're not in the same place as you were when you found yourself there. So tell me about the experience, and then what maybe put you, what clicked that put you on a different road.
Well, I went through a period of really having a disdain for a lot because you gotta understand, I grew up with nothing. I had nothing. I had no direction, no safety, no security, no anything. And then now society is telling me I'm a bad guy for just trying to survive. And so I hated like a lot at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm literally put in a position where I didn't have anything. And I didn't choose to be here on this planet. And now because I basically stole to survive, you're gonna throw me in jail, and I blamed everything. I just thought it
Mm-hmm.
was the most ridiculous thing in the world. Um, which, by the way, I do fundamentally do think it's still ridiculous. But um, I this is where I got my win regardless mindset from, because we basically have two options: either you submit and be a failure to what the system is telling you that you are,
Mm-hmm.
or you rise above it and help other people out of the situation. Fundamentally, we all have this, we want the same thing, which is we all want happiness, we all want to contribute to the world, and we all want to be, just be respected, like our humanity and agency to be respected. That's generally what we
Mm-hmm.
all want. Um, and so as I realized that, I realized different ways to achieve that, which is number one, through integrity. If you're a person of integrity, then no matter what you do, who you are, people will like you. Period.
Mm-hmm.
That's number
Mm-hmm.
one. You'll get that respect that you want. Number two, if you're able to make somebody's life better in some sort of capacity, then people will like you. And if you're able to do that on a high level, then people will pay you for it.
True. This is true. I like
You
that.
know.
Um, so, I think that something that you said, kind of resonates with me too. And that is about the fact that the system is broken. Like fundamentally, you said you still feel the same way. Like you're penalized for trying to survive, right? You didn't ask to be here. You grew up in the situation that you grew up in. That was well outside of your control. And you do what you have to do to survive. And I know demographically speaking, I was in a show with Monica a couple of weeks back. She's a detective. She's a private detective, and we were talking on the topic of race because she brought up she did a whole show on white privilege, right? So she did a whole show on that, and I was talking to her about it because of the fact that I don't think people understand or see the disparities properly. I know that I don't because I can't, because I'm not you and I'm not in that situation. But I also know that my sister is married to a black man. Her children are mixed. And there's a whole lot of things that have gone on with that, judgments that's happened, things that's happened when they got pulled over, things like that, that people don't know and understand the next level of disparity or inequity. That's what it is, inequity that exists on top of that. So that, you know, the work that I have to do as a woman is different and more than a man comparable in my position. And the work that you might have to do is more than somebody who is white and in your position. There's so many disparities. And do you think part of that is a factor? Because I live in a city too that ranks pretty high in the crime realm because I'm from New Orleans. So
Oh yeah.
you're like,
New
ah,
Orleans is the
okay,
other city
get
that's
it,
always
yeah.
in the top five.
Yeah, exactly. And but I see the inequities here too. I see it, I see it every day. So, so I'm just wondering if do you feel like that also adds to it?
So
Not to get off in some political rant. You don't have to get, you know what I'm saying?
no,
I just feel like
listen. I don't.
real talk. This real talk. And I got a lot to learn. So teach, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like talking politics, but um, short answer is yes. Obviously, it's always very strange to me, like why people would deny certain facts. Like for example, I mean, if you know, like black people just got full rights technically, right? In the '60s, why would you think that doesn't impact us? Like, I don't
Yeah,
understand. Like, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, what?
they're
Like,
right, right.
literally, my mom was from Mississippi. Like, she couldn't drink out of the same. She grew up literally not being able to go to school with white people.
Uh-huh.
Like,
And my mom, so you heard of Ruby Bridges? She was
yeah,
in Louisiana. She was the first black girl to go to in when after they
yep,
made the law for
yep.
integration. Louisiana resisted, right? They didn't listen. They're like, yeah, you can make the law, but you can't make us listen to you. So when they started enforcing it and said that it had to happen, the black schools didn't want to integrate because they were like, no, I mean, why would we send our kids there? It's dangerous. But one family, they actually they talked to, I think it was like 5 or 7 families, and ultimately one family offered up their sacrificial lamb, right? And she thought that they were cheering for her. She was 7 years old. She thought they were cheering for her going into school. My mom
Mhm.
went to this school, and they did not allow the kids to get off the bus. And what they were doing was booing and they were being mean. She was escorted in with police. She didn't know though, right? She thought, oh, I have police. I got this pretty new dress. I got, and I'm going to this nice big school. And she thought one thing. And then when she got into the school, most of the teachers left. None of the students stayed. They bused them to another school. My mom to this day even in college, never went to school with a black person. And she's not a prejudiced person, but I'm going to tell you right now, it had a huge impact. She cries about it when I got the story. I actually taped her when I got the story about this, because she was like, what we grew up thinking and what we grew up knowing or believing was so wrong. Now that's just my mom. That's one generation. And like you
One
said,
generation.
you know, we all know about generational trauma, generational memories, and that's one generation ago. If you don't think it's real, and you don't think that people have a right to be upset and to express and to expect more, then the problem is, us, really. Those people who don't believe so.
Yeah, it's always very strange to me. This is the reason why me personally, when it comes to dealing with people that like consistently deny it, I just don't have the energy. Mainly because if there's no amount of reason I can give you that if you can't clearly understand, there's nothing I'm going to be to say to you that's going to be to convince you or to change your mind. I mean, again, like you just gave a perfect example. We're just talking about one generation ago. I mean, these people are still senators. These people, like the ones that was actually doing exactly what you're talking about, they're senators, they're CEOs, they still got like it's important people of our society. So it's just like, my mom couldn't my mom's in her 60s, right? She couldn't sit with people, right? She couldn't drink with people, right? She couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
and it had an impact. Or had actually people don't like what do they think this, like what type of impact this happened on our mental health, right? Like
Right. And that's what this month, May, mental health awareness, and that's why I'm emphasizing men. But if your mother was dealing with that, then what impact did that have on choices she made, and the impacts that that then had on you?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
then
So
then but
yeah,
then you want to blame you for maybe making decisions to survive, when
yeah,
society basically put you in the position you were in, that had you fighting to survive.
yeah. And so
And I guess that's where I was going with that. It's long
yeah, and
circle.
that's how I got here because I started to realize that that our brains are the biggest problem solving machines on the planet.
Mhm.
And I like either I could submit to what this cruel world created or I can make it better. And I chose to make it better. I chose
Mhm.
to um, take my talents and understand that um, I can create the life that I want, irrespective of what somebody else is trying to tell me. And
Mhm.
that's when I developed the win regardless mindset, which is I have to win in life regardless of the circumstances. Like it doesn't like you grow up in a poor circumstance, you still have to win in life. You have an obligation to win in life.
Mhm.
Donald Trump is
Mhm.
president, you still got to win. You still got to go out there and win. You got to win no matter what. So what are you
Right.
going to do? And if you put yourself in that position, then you start solving problems instead of creating problems.
Mhm. Or dwelling on problems. I find that sometimes when I'm coaching people, I find people going, they're not solution oriented, and even though they're not making the problems, they are just recycling, dwelling, living inside of that. They are not becoming aware. They are not solution oriented. They're not getting themselves in a place of, so what I like to call, they're living in their blockers, right? They're living in their fear, their self sabotage, their anger, their bitterness, whatever it is that they have that's going on. And they're living in that loop instead of going, okay, let me pause. Those thoughts are not who I am. Where I am is just where I am. It's not who I am. And I think that's a realization you probably had, even if you didn't word it like this, right? Like you find yourself in a place, that place is not who you are, right? It's just a place in time, and you have options to move. Nobody stays in one place. It just doesn't stay. Nothing stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's when I go, okay, so then if you are in that, if you find yourself in that place and you become aware of it, whether you're dealing with whatever blocker, whatever thing that's in your way, you can address it if you become aware of it, right? But you can't change something you're not willing to confront. And once you confront it, you can give yourself the option of, is it really true? What happens if I work through it? What happens if I stay where I am? And then you make the decision. Take
Yeah.
the 20 seconds of courage to just move, act, do something. So tell me about what that looked like for you after prison, or were there changes that were actually happening while you were in prison?
Yeah, of course. It happened in prison. I mean, I started seeing everybody, and everybody had on this mask, right? Where they was all pretending to be something, right? Like, I saw people 40, 50 years old still gang banging, and I thought that was the craziest thing in the world. And then, I'm looking at people, these young guys, 20 years old, 19 years old, 21 years old, fighting each other, stabbing each other, and they facing life in jail. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, these people are trying to take your entire life away, and you still want to fight these. Like, are you? I gotta get out of here. This is all. I was like, yo, I'm not like,
Are
like,
you
yo.
seeing what I'm seeing, right?
I was like, yo, this is like so crazy. Like, so, uh,
So the the weird thing is, why I guess I don't know. All right, so the weird thing to me is that you find yourself in that place, and why would you want to perpetuate and stay in that place? Do they think they don't have options? Obviously you saw it very differently. You were like, nope,
but
I'm out of here.
but there's a point here though that I wanted to make though, right?
Hmm.
Which is that even though I clearly saw the mask of the people in jail, when I got out of jail, I realized there's more people that are mentally in prison than there are people physically in prison.
I
And
agree.
so um everybody is living with this mask of trying to prove to be something, trying to be something they're not. They're not living their dreams, they're not living their aspiration, they're not being themselves. And this is just a common thing with people, period. You know.
Mm.
And I think that's what I fundamentally learned in jail.
So what did you do when you got out to overcome that? Because I mean, you went in living in a place where you felt like you needed to survive. You were doing things to survive, and that's how you wound up in there. So when you came out, you probably weren't in a much better position. So
No,
tell me how you changed it. What did
I
you
changed
do?
my actual living conditions.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the mind shift is first. That's the first thing
Of
that
course.
happened
Mhm.
while I was in jail. But when I got out, I just didn't take no as a reason. The thing is, here's the thing: our brains are problem solving machines. We could
Mm,
figure out solutions to anything. There is a My friend always has this philosophy. He says, if you can get yourself in it, you can get yourself out of it. You know,
mm, I like it.
and yeah, and I believe that. And the reason I believe that is because your mind is um it's still the most there's a physicist, what is his name, Michio Kaku, right? He says that the mind is the most is still the most unknown thing in the universe, right? And I agree with that because there is so much untapped potential that we have within our mind. And I think sometimes we put ourselves in the boxes that we live in. We put ourselves in the prisons that we live in.
Mm,
And so for me, it was always about how can I expand my thinking? How can I get better? How do I self improve? How do I obtain the highest level of self mastery? Right? Because I believe my success is always tied to my own personal level of self mastery and what I can overcome. And as
mm,
I continue to improve myself and continue to improve my thinking, my life experiences continue to improve. And so when I got out of jail, I was part of this program called Mission Gate. Mission Gate was a program for people that just got out of jail. It was basically kind of like a shelter for men that just got out of jail.
uh-huh.
And I, followed the rules, got a job, which was difficult, obviously getting a job with, my position, but I was able to do it. And I started from there. And once you're able to take care of yourself, then you can think clearly. Because when you have nothing, you can't think about anything but surviving. If
Right.
the number one principle for actual, success is what they call delayed gratification. Being able
Yep.
to delay the
Mhm.
gratification
Mhm.
for the future, right? Like kind of like what they say, never sacrifice the important for the urgent, right? So, um, for the urgent matters when you're just trying to survive, when you're thinking about where you're going to sleep at, when you're thinking about where you're going to get your next meal at, that's the main thing on your mind. You can't think about the future.
Mhm.
But once you're able to secure that, once you're able to secure where you're living at, once you're able to secure having food in your stomach, then the next thing you can secure is your future. You can think about your future. Now, what do I want to do next? What are the things I can do next? And that was the thing there. After I was able to do that, I was able to think about that. And then I met a guy named Prince C because I've always wanted to change the world, so to speak, right? Because I wanted to
Mhm.
change my world, and I realized how messed up my world was, and I'm like, yo, people shouldn't have to grow up like this. So, um, I met a guy by the name of Prince E during this time because I used to be really heavy into the rap scene, into in the St. Louis arena. But he was a conscious rapper, dude that rap about positive stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so I met up with him, and we became friends. And he started a movement, and his movement was an online movement about making smart cool. And then once I realized that that was the way to go, that's when the stars align.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is really interesting is the programs that are available to take advantage of. I would venture to say that there are a good many people who come out of prison who don't take advantage of the programs that might be available to them. Is that a true statement?
I mean, if there's programs I can tell you like this, they got to do better about showcasing where they are, because even the program that I became a part of, I had to take initiative of finding out more about it myself.
Mm.
If these programs are available, then there needs to be a better source of outreach.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got it. Okay, so the reason why I asked that is the guy that I interviewed I guess it was last week. I can't remember. But the guy that I interviewed that spent 7 years in prison, he was in Australia, and their whole way of doing it is a lot different. And he was in, the whole program while he was in prison because he got himself moved from like a high security to a lower security. Um, the whole program that he was in was farmland, like they were farming, and so there was a lot of outside stuff. He was afforded college, came out with a bachelor's degree, and you know what I mean. Like they their method was education rehabilitates, I believe, and I think
It could do that. I don't
and
know why. I think they kind of like took that away from U.S., but because it wasn't there when. Let me rephrase. We was able, if you didn't have your high school diploma, you could get your GED, and then at the state facility I was at, they did allow some form of secondary education.
mhm.
Um, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I mean, I'm not here to talk about that. It just, I find it interesting, though. When you said you tapped into a program when you got out, you had to do the work to even do that. And it seems like even if you showcase that, like you said, where you would have a little more faith in a system that maybe put you in there, maybe the flip side is creating a system that helps people to move from that place. And I don't like to use the word empower only because I think we all have the power within us. We just haven't realized that we are not taking the power. But when someone shows you that you have the ability to take that power, then you're like, okay, that's the empowering thing. It's not somebody giving you power, but they're showing you that you have the ability to do what you want to do. And it's inside of you already. And so I like the fact that you were able to tap into something like that, because then it allowed you so to get here. And I think that here, and I don't know who knows. Let me just call out some people in the audience. I've seen a couple people come and go. Deborah's in the audience. She's a Broadway queen. Um, and Woody, who I think is probably a fireside bot, but I'm not sure. We have George Bad Bunny. He's also in New York, and then us and a couple of people have popped in and out. And the thing is, when I look at your situation, um, I feel like now where you are, there's so much that you're giving back. And when you find yourself, like you said, in a place basically of survival mode, and you're a giver, and you can't give, like innately you said you knew you had to change the world, like you knew that that's a giver, that's a person who is a giver. And when a giver is in survival mode, where they have to scrounge or ask for help, or be a taker for a while, and not able to put their gifts out there, their purpose, it's even more stifling. Not everybody is a giver like that, right? So you are, and that makes it even doubly hard when you have to move from wherever into a place to find a way to be able to do that, to make those changes. So tell us about, you got out, and you started making these changes. Tell us how you got from that to um inner inner light media. Am I saying it right? Because I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, NLP Media. Yeah, so I
Okay.
started working with Prince E. And as I started working with Prince E, he always had this philosophy that, because I used to say, "Hey man, you got to do some shows, man." And he used to say, "Why should I do a show in front of 1,000 people when I can do a video and get it in front of 100,000 people?"
Mm,
And so that always, shifted my mind frame in terms of the power of being online. And so we always tried to figure out how to go viral online. And then in 2014, we ended up, going viral. He was getting
mm,
hundreds of millions of views on his videos, and it just wouldn't stop. And so as he started growing and going super viral. Different people would reach out, like Jay Shetty, Lewis Howes, and stuff like that, and like, hey, listen, would love to learn more about how you guys are doing that. And so when I started helping other people, I decided I could form a business around it, and then
mm.
that's how like media came about.
Okay, I love it. And so what work do you do that helps these people? Because so are you more of like a behind the scenes guy? Because I feel like a lot of people know who Jay Shetty is, probably Lou's house. So tell me, what type of work is it that you do for those people that that help them? Is it you help them to build their platforms?
Yes, so
Okay.
I met both of them when early on.
Uh-huh.
When Shetty had, I met Jay Shetty when he had about 30,000 followers.
Okay. Hmm.
And at the time he didn't really have a specific direction on how he wanted to create content or a network to distribute his content on.
Hmm.
So me, I'm a strategy guy. I like to build strategies for social media. I like to help people, anybody, whoever it is. If you're a
Hmm.
person and you have an idea, and I take that idea and I bring it to the front and get it to the masses so you can impact as many people as you want. I help people basically realize their dream, their passion, of impacting lives on a scale. If you want to scale the ability to impact lives with your talents, then I give you a path to do that.
Okay. And this is exactly why I was doing this workshop with you. So, yeah, anyway. So, side note, we'll get back to that for sure because I know that's going to happen. But yeah, so I love that because I think that's so important because I think a lot of people have um a message right now, and I think we're in a creator society right now where um if you have something that you really want to share, people need it so badly. Like people need the connection, people need the support, people need it so badly. And if you have that to share, it's a disservice if you're not working to get it out there, right?
Yeah, I look at it like this. Imagine if somebody had the cure to cancer.
Mm,
and they decided not to share it with the world.
Right.
Is that person a good person or not so much a good person?
Right. Well, and then not only did if they didn't decide, but maybe they had the cure and nobody's listening. And how do you get it there? How do you get that word out? How do you get it to people like, hey,
That's
I
a, ve-
got this,
that's
you
a
know?
very that's a very important thing. So the first thing you have to understand, or people have to understand when it comes to communicating with people, is you can't force people to accept things. Human beings are a rebellious bunch. We are rebellious people. You can't force
Exactly.
us to accept anything. So you have to meet people where they're at. There's a
Hmm.
saying that says you could you could bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Right.
They said you could put salt in its hay to make it thirsty. So the point in saying that is how you communicate to people, how you're able to facilitate your message, is a skill that's needed in order to build your community.
Mm.
These social platforms give you the ability, they basically structure it for you. They give you all the answers in how to do it. My ability is to extract that from you and facilitate in a way that where you can scale it. So these social media platforms are doing most of the work for you. They're doing
Hmm.
most of the work for you. They're telling you, hey, if you're on Facebook, written content, if you're on YouTube, video content, if you're on Instagram, picture, like there's different ways that you can meet your audience.
Hmm.
They're like, which way, where's your audience at? What do you like to do? Like, where are they mostly at? Like, these are different things that you should know um, before you curate your message. And
Hmm.
once we get all that dialed in, then we can actually facilitate the message itself.
Right. I love it. Well, I want to see if anybody in the audience wants to come up. Are you okay for questions for just maybe about 10 minutes? Because I know you're somewhere and I don't want to keep you. But if anybody wants to come up and have questions real quick, because he's at a function and we're not going to go long. We're not going to go long because I want to respect your time. But I would love to have anybody up from the audience. George, Natalie. Hey, Natalie. I didn't realize you were in here. Just you must have just recently popped in. Okay, George, Natalie, Bad Bunny, Deborah. Anybody wants to come up? Hey, Bunny, do you have a question, Bunny?
Hello, how are you today? Hello, Travis. Hello, Deanna.
Hi.
Wonderful, informative talk. And I came in here in the beginning, and so many topics were covered. And I think this is kind of like a double question. In back in the state of uncertainty 2 years ago, I wanted to ask Travis what your opinion was when we are going through this state of uncertainty. Everybody's having to stay home and everything. And then 2 months later, we are having to deal with um, separation of people and their backgrounds and things of that nature. But then you also saw people marching in the street of a certain demographic, and what wasn't everyone supposed to be staying home, and the gatherings weren't supposed to be taking place, and a lot of the atrocities that were taking place towards that demographic of people. So I wanted to know what you thought about that. Because for me, I was like, weren't we all supposed to stay home? Why is this happening?
Mm. Are, are are you talking about Black Lives Matter? I think we're dancing around a subject here. I think you can. I think you can speak freely. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, Travis, what do you have to say?
Yeah, real simple. So there's order of importance. Um, so I think what he just explained in his life, something is not impacting him as much as it's impacting somebody else's life.
Mm-hmm.
So for
Mm-hmm.
him, it's not that important. For other people, this is actually more important to them at a greater scale. And if we look at the history of what's happened in this country, I think it's vastly more important. So you can and at the end of the day, even if you disagree that it's more important to you or it's even less important to them, if that's the argument you want to be made. At the end of the day, again, you can't force people to do what you want to do. Everybody's not going to agree. People who disagree, people have a right to decide what's more important to them about whether or not, if I go out and do this, I am going to tolerate the risk, right, of what this may do to me. And they have every right to do that. We should live in a country where we are free enough to decide if I want to go out and risk it, and I can determine for myself whether or not this is a tolerable risk.
Agreed. And I think there's a lot of things that go on that that is I know Deborah does some talking about the impacts that are happening with the LGBTQIA. I think I'm getting this right because I'm learning community, and some laws that are starting to change now in that arena, and or at least they're threatening to, and and speaking out about that, where you can lose your rights in some areas that they've made ground, like move forward, you can get married, you can, make a life with someone, and now you're trying to take that back, right? Or certain things in that area. So I know that there's a lot of unrest, and like I agree with what you said. It's like what impacts one person more than another changes the way they look at the risk factor. So I think that's a beautiful way to put it, right? I mean, everybody weighs their risk versus, the cause. And
And people have the right to be wrong too. Like some people, if the risk factors, if they were analytical about it and their conclusion was incorrect, that's fine too. The point is freedom, allowing people to have the freedom to do that. Now, if we're talking about the zombie apocalypse, that's different. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a much, you know what I'm saying? Like, but we're not talking about the zombie apocalypse. We're talking about something that, while was definitely dangerous, at the same time, the risk factor was wildly different depending upon, what comorbidities you had, your health status, things like that, your age. There's a range of factors that change your risk factor. And I think people should be allowed to make those assessments for themselves.
agreed. I like that. We have a comment from Natalie. I'm trying to read the comments, but I clicked on Natalie. That's a beautiful sentimental. We're all allowed the freedom to be wrong. I love that. Yeah, it's a good thought, and it's true. And the really the truth of the matter is we can't always be right anyway. You The way you make it through life, the way you learn is through the wrongs. I think it's through the mistakes, it's through the times that you messed up, you made the wrong decision, you took the wrong turn, you didn't make the right choice, you might even know you didn't make the right choice, and but you go through that. And when you go through it, you come out on the other end. If you're doing it right, you're learning. You're doing, I think it was Will Smith that said it, you fail forward, right? And like I said in Deborah's show the other day, they were talking about loss. When you lose at something, or when you've lost something, make sure that that loss moves you forward. For me, this is a way of saying I'm living in gratitude. Because if you can find gratitude for everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it doesn't matter what it is. I went through intimate partner violence. I came through that and had some terrific or horrific things happen with my children. And, I felt like I didn't protect my children. And it was a rough, hard, very low place to be. I can either wallow in that and live there, or say, no, I'm going to get up. I'm going to figure out what I did, where I went wrong. And then I am going to work so hard to make the changes that I need inside of me, that they see it and my kids see it, so that they make the changes too. And then generationally, their kids, my grandkids, because I do have 5, you start creating legacy. You start making those changes, and you start creating legacy and putting them into a position of growth and their growth mindset, and allowing them to achieve things that maybe you could never have achieved, because you're making the right choice. You're growing, you're living in gratitude, and that's the only way. I think I think to grow is to live in gratitude. Am I wrong? I don't know. That's just how I see it.
Well, I don't believe a lot in absolutes. I'm not going to say the only way, but I will say that is living in a state of gratitude is a healthy way of learning. It's a healthy way of being able to deal with people and even yourself. I think about my wife, for example, just to kind of go back to what you were saying a little earlier. Even when it comes to my wife, me and my wife disagree on a number of topics. We don't agree on everything. And sometimes it may take a while for me to kind of like see the point. Sometimes it may take a while for my wife to see the point. The key for that is patience and love, and to
Mm-hmm.
operate in that capacity and say, she's wrong about that, but I'm still going to walk with her in her wrongness, right?
Mm,
you know,
mm,
going to walk with her, even though she may not see it, because I think that's what true leadership is being able to walk with people, even when it hurts, even when it's painful, even when uh, really that's what true love is, right? Is when it doesn't feel good, you're still able to operate with integrity and a way that allows them to move forward in a positive direction. So,
right.
yeah,
And I love that. I mean, what a lucky woman to have someone who can partner, stand by their side, especially if you know. Now I get it. You might pull somebody back if it's so detrimental or it'll be harmful. But if
yeah,
you know that it's not the right decision, quote unquote, but you let them go through the process of figuring that out and you stand by them the whole time and you don't do the I told you so's. I think that's profound in a relationship. I mean, that could be a whole a whole nother show, really.
yeah,
But but I think that's profound in all sorts of relationships. I mean, it's beautiful in the most intimate relationship, which is your wife, but it could be applied all over the place. I mean, in your workplace, allowing the people who work for you to have the freedom to make mistakes and not be reprimanded and know that, hey, this is how we learn, this is how we grow, this is why I did it a certain way. I'll let you test that out. It's not the way. It's okay. We keep going. What a great supportive environment everything would be if we all operated like that. And I do agree with you. Like for me, when I look at gratitude, I think gratitude and love are very, very similar. They're very high vibration places to live. And when you can find appreciation for the things that you have instead of wanting, and then also just live in love, greet every day with love. um, one of the books I read, it talked about, it said to say to yourself in your heart when you meet someone or when you have an interaction with someone, say to yourself in your heart, I love you. And it'll bring a smile to your face. It'll relax your forehead. They're going to feel the vibe without you saying it. And it's going to change not just you, but the person you're interacting with.
that's
And
a
I
good
thought,
perspective.
yeah. And I thought, I just feel like, and I do this all the time when I'm out and about, especially when I'm dealing with the people who are in, let's say, customer care, whether it's, a greeter at the store or cashier or whatever. They get the brunt of everything. They're just getting paid to do a job to check you out, but they get the complaints. They get the person yelling, the thing that went wrong, and they really have no control over it. And that's how, like, even on the phone, I approach it like this. I say to myself, Kathy answered the phone. I say to myself, I love you. I put a smile on my face and I go, you know what, Kathy? I hope that you are my little pixie today who's going to solve my problems. And it changes the whole way the rest of that conversation is going to go, because I have just put power in her hands that she has the ability to make my day just like I have the ability to make her day. So anyway, so all right, well, anybody else want to come up before we head out, because I'm going to let Travis go. unless anybody has a question. And if not, we're going to wrap up. Money, did you just get back off the stage? He's up and
Well,
down.
I was waiting to, interject.
Okay. May I
So,
interject?
my
Okay, go.
question before you go, Travis, what mainstream platform do you believe is the most universal to use currently? Because in my generation, we don't use YouTube.
His
Whoa,
generation is
hold on.
under
What
25.
what
He is
generation is he?
21. He's 21. Okay, that's
Oh,
his
you know him?
generation. Yes, I do know him.
What is
Very
what does
from
he mean his
here, just this
generation doesn't use?
platform. I know him here.
What does he mean his generation doesn't use YouTube? I need some clarity on that.
You don't use YouTube, Bunny? Tell us.
That's
Wait, he left. He is not clarifying. He is like, nope, I'm out. Get over it. I'm not doing that. All
um.
right.
So the universal platform. So I got three answers for that. I think um probably the technology I'm most interested in globally that is universal is probably blockchain technology. Um, I'm extremely interested in that because I think it has a strong possibility to allow anybody with a phone a way to economize resources in a way they can do commerce with anybody in the world.
Mm,
It makes it a lot easier. So I think blockchain technology for me is one of those things. Um, Two, I mean, he said YouTube. I mean, I was going to say the internet, but I was a little. That's why I was going to ask him a little bit more question. Like, well, what does he mean?
yeah.
Because the internet has done more for humanity in the last
I,
50. Go ahead. What are you going
I
to say?
think he was being maybe wanting to be a little more specific. Like, if you had to pick one platform, would it be, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube? Obviously, all of those are kind of basically the internet to
Well,
some
the
extent.
universal is such an ambiguous term. There's no way to really gauge what he
Yeah,
means, but
I
it doesn't
got
really,
you.
yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
really
a.
clarify much. So that's why.
So he says we use TikTok. We don't go to YouTube. Okay, blockchain is a risk and considered a collector's item. Yeah. So blockchain is just so new, but I get that.
It
Yeah.
sounds like to me he's talking about a social media platform. So that, which again is a different question. I was if
Right.
he's talking,
All right.
if
Well,
he,
give us your third one. Universally, you said the blockchain, the internet. What would be three?
well, hold on. Let me. So I'll get
Okay.
social media. Yeah, I to answer this question, he said they don't use. I'm gonna still. I don't care if you don't use it or not. I'm still gonna say YouTube because YouTube is the second most searchable platform on the internet. Number one. Number two, it's evergreen. TikTok is almost like a fad for real. If you're not doing the latest trends, like what is it really? YouTube is an evergreen platform. It's much more valuable in that context. But lastly, and I think this is a very underutilized thing is, and this is something that's going to be super non-traditional answer, but empathy. I think EQ is where human beings actually need to go. I think that's the future. Instead of we were so focused on IQ for so many years that I
Mm-hmm.
think the next frontier is working on EQ. Because I don't care how smart you are, if you can't relate to the next person, you can't
Mm-hmm.
build. You can't build. Civilization is not how big your buildings are. It's about how well you can get along with the next person. That's the most valuable piece of what it means to be civilized. So if
Okay.
you
And
can't,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
now I'm gonna say, so if you can't do that, I don't care what your IQ is.
Right. And that brings me to this. And I think that's something that we noticed or we learned. I think we learned it really well and hopefully we actually do what we need to do. But we learned it really well while we were locked down. We learned and we became we I think we reflected and we started to understand the needs that we have and how connected we are and the need to be connected. And I've watched a lot of things on connection, even somebody who talked about connection being the opposite of addiction, you know? So I think we realized when you became isolated, we thought we were connected, going through our busy lives, wearing busy as a badge, running around, doing the things. And then we got shut down and we started realizing those things were not as important as we thought they were, but the people were. The
Yeah.
people are.
Right.
And I think that was behind the the Black Lives Matter movement. I think it's behind a lot of things. It's understanding that we are human beings and are the are, we all want the same things.
Yeah.
Stop dividing, right? And come together. Anyway, soapboxes sometimes, but I mean that's what I think. That's just me. My opinion's worth, I don't know, two pennies, rub them together. I don't know what to say. But I do believe that is true. I do believe in that connection. It's one of the reasons I do this show here is to build community and connection. I mean, letting people see, hey, here's stuff I've gone through, here's stuff you've gone through, and everybody in this audience has been through something. And
Yeah.
everybody listening out there on YouTube has been through something. And if you can see that we go through it, we're the same. I'm the same. I'm like you, you're like me. If you get right down to the brass tacks, and we have gone through things, it might not be the same things, but the bottom line is we're still striving for how we're going to make it through to the other side and impact the people we want to impact.
Yep.
So
Amen to that. Thank you so much for having me
I
on.
yeah, and I appreciate it. We're going to wrap up here. I want to thank everybody who joined us. Okay, spread the love, share this out on the replay when I get it up here. Um, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you were attending something. I'll let you get back to that, and I really appreciate this. And I know I'm going to see you soon and get to learn some more from you. And then I'm going to come back and share that with these people too, so they know.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah, let's learn more.
All right.
I believe everybody has a fire inside them, a light, and I want to help them share it with the world.
I love it. And so that's it, you guys. Travis Believes. Go follow him on Instagram. I'm going to put his information in the show notes when I get this updated, and it'll also be in the notes on my YouTube channel, my Laughter After YouTube channel, so you guys can figure it all out. And again, thanks so much for being here. I like to say, I see you. You are beautiful. I truly believe that. Okay. And until next time here on Fireside, you guys, shine on. I'm going to play some of my husband's music to get us out of here because Waypot stinks. All right. So you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a listen.
Surrounding me would make one hell of a social experiment.